The transparent dome of Orpheus 9 research station hung in orbit around Eden 3, catching the light of the distant star in prismatic rainbows that splashed across the sterile white labs within. Dr. Kai Harper stood at the observation window, his reflection ghostly against the backdrop of the mysterious planet below. Its surface was a swirl of teal and violet, punctuated by land masses that resembled ink blots on water. Somewhere down there, life forms unlike anything humanity had ever encountered thrived and died in cycles they were only beginning to understand. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Kai murmured to himself, adjusting the collar of his regulation lab coat. The Galactic Alliance insignia gleamed on his chest pocket, a stylized helix entwined with stars, the symbol of humanity's greatest scientific endeavor. A soft chime interrupted his reverie. "Dr. Harper, your presence is requested in Laboratory 7, announced the artificial intelligence assistant, its voice neither male nor female, but precisely calibrated to inspire trust. "Thank you, Echo," Kai replied, straightening his posture. At 36, he still maintained the lean build of an athlete, though years of bending over microscopes had begun to curve his spine. His dark hair was cropped short, and his eyes, described by colleagues as intensely perceptive, reflected the same teal as the planet below. "Any indication what the meeting concerns?" "Major General Voss has arrived from Central Command. The briefing is classified Alpha 9. Kai's stomach tightened. Alpha 9 meant military involvement at the highest level. The biochemist had joined the Orpheus mission for its promise of discovery, not warfare. The Galactic Alliance's public stance was clear: find the universal cure for the invasive plagues that had decimated 3 colony worlds in the past decade. But Kai wasn't naive. Military funding always came with strings attached. "Tell them I'll be there in 5 minutes, he said, gathering his tablet and stylus. As he navigated the curved corridors of the station, Kai passed other scientists hurrying to their posts. The station housed 50 researchers and support staff, the brightest minds humanity could offer, plucked from various disciplines and united under one mission. Among them, Kai had earned a reputation as both a brilliant biochemist and an idealist, sometimes to his detriment. Laboratory 7's doors parted with a pneumatic hiss. Inside, 6 people waited around a holographic projection table. Kai recognized Dr. Lena Costa, his closest colleague, her curly hair pulled back in its usual tight bun. Her expression was grim, lips pressed into a thin line. That wasn't a good sign. At the head of the table stood Major General Nadia Voss, her military uniform immaculate, her posture rigid. Though barely 40, her face bore the hardened look of someone who had witnessed too many disasters and made too many difficult decisions. Her platinum blonde hair was pulled back severely, accentuating sharp cheekbones and eyes that evaluated everything as a potential threat or asset. "Dr. Harper," she acknowledged, her voice clipped. "Thank you for joining us promptly." "Major General," Kai nodded. "I wasn't aware we were expecting a military delegation." This isn't a delegation," Voss replied. "This is a directive. Please, take a seat." Kai slid into the chair beside Lena, who subtly shook her head, a warning he recognized from years of collaboration. Whatever was coming, she disapproved. Voss activated the holographic display with a flick of her wrist. A 3-dimensional model of a microorganism appeared above the table, a structure unlike anything in Earth's biological taxonomy. It resembled a crystalline lattice with tendrils that pulsed with an internal light. "This," she announced, "is specimen EV731, collected from the southern hemisphere of Eden 3. Initial tests confirm it's responsible for the rapid cellular deterioration observed in failed colonization attempts." "We're familiar with the pathogen," Kai said, leaning forward. My team has been studying its protein structure for the past 3 months. It's remarkable. It doesn't replicate like viruses or bacteria from Earth. Instead, it reconfigures the host's cellular machinery to convert organic matter into more of itself. Voss cut in. Yes. Dr. Harper, we've read your reports. What concerns Central Command is not how it works, but how to stop it. The Galactic Alliance cannot afford another colony failure. Resources are stretched thin, and public confidence in expansion is waning. Lena spoke up, her Brazilian accent more pronounced under stress. We're making progress on understanding its vulnerabilities. If we could have another 6 months? We don't have 6 months, Voss replied flatly. The colonization fleet for Eden 3 departs in 4. They need protection before they arrive. She expanded the hologram, revealing a simulation of human cells interacting with the pathogen. Our scientists at Central Command have proposed a novel approach. Rather than developing a traditional vaccine, we believe the answer lies in adaptive immunity through cross-patching. Kai frowned. Cross-patching? You mean intentionally exposing human tissue to controlled doses of the pathogen? Precisely. Voss nodded. By introducing minute quantities under controlled conditions, we might stimulate an immune response that can be synthesized and replicated. But we haven't even established if human immunity can recognize this as a threat. Kai objected. It doesn't operate like anything our immune systems evolved to combat. The risk of uncontrolled replication is calculated and acceptable. Voss interrupted. The Military Council has reviewed all available data and determined this is our best course of action. A chill ran down Kai's spine. What exactly are you proposing, Major General? Voss's eyes fixed on him with laser intensity. Dr. Harper, your genetic profile shows remarkable adaptability markers. Your immune system has previously demonstrated unusual resilience to modified pathogens during the Callisto outbreak. You're the ideal candidate for the procedure. The room seemed to tilt slightly. You want to inject me with the alien pathogen, Kai stated, his voice hollow. Under strictly controlled conditions, Voss confirmed. With constant monitoring and intervention protocols in place. Lena stood abruptly. This is insane! We haven't completed basic safety trials. The pathogen could rewrite his entire cellular structure. Dr. Costa, Voss said coolly, your concerns are noted, but this decision comes from the highest authority. The procedure begins tomorrow at 0800 hours. Dr. Harper will be continuously monitored, and at the first sign of dangerous mutation, we'll administer the neutralizing agent. Well, what neutralizing agent? Kai demanded. We haven't developed one yet. Voss's expression didn't change. Central Command has. The formula will arrive with my security team this evening. Kai exchanged glances with Lena. Why would Central Command develop a neutralizing agent without sharing it with the primary research team? Something wasn't adding up. I need to review all the data before I agree to anything. Kai said firmly. This isn't a request, Dr. Harper, Voss replied. This is a direct order under Galactic Alliance Security Protocol 17B. Your contract with the Alliance includes clauses for emergency procedures deemed vital to colonization safety. Her tone softened marginally. For what it's worth, I understand your reservations, but humanity's future expansion depends on solving this problem now, not months from now. After the meeting dispersed, Kai retreated to his personal lab. Mind racing, Lena followed, closing the door behind them. This is wrong, she said immediately. They're not telling us everything. Agreed, Kai replied, pacing the small space. Why develop a neutralizing agent in secret? And why push for human trials when we're still in the basic research phase? Echo, Lena called to the AI assistant. Access all data regarding specimen EV-731 and display recent military communications about the Orpheus mission. I'm sorry, Dr. Costa, Echo's voice replied from the ceiling speakers. Those communications are classified under military protocol. Access denied. Kai and Lena exchanged worried glances. Echo had never denied them access to research data before. Something bigger is happening. Kai muttered. This isn't just about creating a vaccine. Lena stepped closer, lowering her voice. You could refuse. We could file an ethics violation with the Scientific Oversight Committee. And by the time they review it, Voss will have found another test subject. Kai replied grimly. At least if it's me, I understand what we're dealing with. I might have a chance to control the variables. Or you might die, Lena said bluntly. Or worse. Kai turned to the small window that faced Eden 3. The planet's swirling surface seemed to mock him with its alien indifference. What choice do I have? He asked softly. If there's even a chance this could work, that we could protect thousands of colonists. That's what they're counting on. Lena said, Your idealism, your willingness to sacrifice yourself. Don't let them manipulate you. Kai. He smiled sadly. Too late for that, I think. That night, Kai barely slept. His dreams were filled with microscopic battles, cells transforming into crystalline structures that shimmered with unnatural light. He woke repeatedly, drenched in sweat, wondering if he was experiencing premonitions or simply manifesting his fears. At 0700 hours, a military escort arrived to take him to the medical bay. Kai had already dressed in the specialized monitoring suit they'd provided, a skin-tight garment embedded with thousands of microscopic sensors that would track every biological change in real time. Lena was waiting outside the procedure room, dark circles under her eyes suggesting she'd slept as poorly as he had. I've set up additional monitoring protocols, she whispered as they embraced briefly. Echo will send data directly to my private terminal, bypassing military channels. Thank you, Kai murmured. If something goes wrong... Nothing will go wrong, she interrupted fiercely. And if it does, I'll be watching every indicator. We'll stop it before it goes too far. Inside the procedure room, Major General Voss stood beside a team of medical personnel in hazmat suits. A sealed container sat on a sterile tray, glowing faintly with the same teal luminescence they'd observed in the pathogen. Dr. Harper, Voss acknowledged. Are you prepared? As I'll ever be, Kai replied, settling onto the examination table. I want to review the neutralizing agent protocol before we begin. Voss nodded to one of the medical technicians, who handed Kai a tablet. The formula displayed was complex, a synthetic compound designed to disrupt the crystalline structure of the pathogen. But something in the molecular design caught Kai's attention. This contains elements that would affect human neural tissue, he noted, frowning. The side effects could include memory loss, cognitive impairment. Only in extreme cases, Voss interjected, the dosage would be carefully controlled. Memory loss. The realization dawned on Kai that this wasn't just about creating immunity. It was about ensuring that if the experiment went badly, he might not remember what had happened to him, what they had done. But it was too late to back out. The restraints were already being secured around his limbs. For your safety, the technician murmured, and Lena's worried face watched from behind glass in the observation area. Beginning injection procedure, announced the lead physician, a woman whose name badge read Dr. Eliza Chen. Specimen EV-731 diluted to 1 part per million, 5 milliliter dose. Kai felt the cold press of the hypodermic against his neck, then a burning sensation as the teal-colored liquid entered his bloodstream. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a wave of nausea washed over him, followed by intense heat that seemed to radiate from his core. Vital signs elevated but within acceptable parameters, reported a technician. Body temperature rising, 39.1 degrees Celsius. That's not acceptable. Lena's voice came through the intercom, sharp with concern. His baseline is 36.8. That's more than 2 degrees above normal. Continue monitoring, Voss ordered, ignoring Lena's objection. The heat intensified, and Kai felt as though his blood had been replaced with molten metal. His vision blurred, the lights overhead stretching into prismatic streaks. He tried to speak, but found his throat constricting. Respiratory distress, someone reported distantly. Administering bronchodilator. A mask was placed over Kai's face, and cool mist filled his lungs. The constriction eased slightly, but the burning sensation continued to spread through his body. Through his haze, he noticed something strange. His hands appeared to be glowing with a faint teal luminescence, the same color as the pathogen. Unusual dermal response, a technician noted. Bioluminescence detected in the extremities. Is that within expected parameters? Voss demanded. There was a pause before the response came. Unknown, Major General. This wasn't observed in tissue samples. Kai wanted to laugh hysterically. Of course it wasn't. They were injecting an alien microorganism into a living human for the first time. There were no expected parameters. The next several hours passed in a blur of pain and disorientation. Kai drifted in and out of consciousness, aware at times of urgent voices and the beeping of medical equipment. At other times, lost in vivid hallucinations. He saw microscopic worlds where crystalline structures danced and communicated through pulses of light. He felt his body dissolving and reforming at the cellular level. When he finally regained full consciousness, the procedure room was dimly lit. The restraints had been removed, and only a single technician remained, monitoring the equipment. What time is it? Kai asked, his voice raspy. The technician jumped slightly. You're awake. It's 0300 hours. You've been in and out for almost 18 hours. Kai slowly sat up, expecting pain, but finding none. In fact, he felt oddly energized, as though electricity hummed just beneath his skin. Where is everyone? Major General Voss and the primary team are reviewing the data. Dr. Costa refused to leave until an hour ago, when we convinced her you were stable. Kai looked down at his hands. The luminescence had faded, but not completely. In the dim light, he could see faint teal lines tracing the paths of veins beneath his skin. I need to see the monitoring data, he said, swinging his legs over the side of the bed. Sir, I don't think you should. I'm the primary investigator on this project. Kai interrupted, steel in his voice. And I'm also the test subject. I have every right to see what's happening to my own body. Reluctantly, the technician handed him a tablet. Kai scrolled through pages of biometric readings, his scientific mind quickly processing the implications. His core temperature had stabilized at 38.5 degrees, nearly 2 degrees above his normal baseline, but no longer dangerously high. Blood analysis showed elevated white cell counts and, more concerning, the presence of unknown protein structures that hadn't been there before. Has anyone taken tissue samples since the injection? He asked. Yes, sir. Dr. Costa performed a muscle biopsy while you were unconscious. The results are on page 7. Kai found the microscopy images and froze. His muscle cells showed clear signs of alteration. The mitochondria, the cellular power plants, had changed shape, becoming more crystalline, more like the alien pathogen. Yet the cells weren't dying. They were functioning with apparently increased efficiency. I need to get to my lab, Kai said. Standing up, the room spun briefly, then steadied. Sir, you're supposed to remain under observation for at least 48 hours. Kai fixed the technician with a stare. Then observe me in my lab. I need better equipment than what's available here. After a brief argument, the technician relented, calling for a security escort to accompany Kai. As they walked through the curved corridors of the station, Kai became aware of another strange phenomenon. He could sense the life forms around him in a way he never had before. The security guard's heartbeat seemed audible, though Kai knew that was impossible through the thick fabric of the man's uniform. And more disturbingly, he could somehow perceive the colonies of bacteria that lived on human skin, in the air, on surfaces, microscopic worlds that should have been invisible to the naked eye. In his lab, Kai immediately took blood and tissue samples from himself, preparing slides with practiced efficiency despite his still trembling hands. Under his high-powered microscope, the transformation became even more apparent. The alien pathogen hadn't simply triggered an immune response, it had integrated with his cells, altering them from within. And most surprisingly, the changes appeared to be enhancing cellular function rather than destroying it. Fascinating, he murmured, adjusting the microscope's focus. It's not behaving like a pathogen at all. It's more like a symbiont. Dr. Harper? Kai looked up to find Lena standing in the doorway, her face pale with exhaustion and worry. You should be resting, she admonished, hurrying to his side. I'm fine, he assured her. Better than fine. Actually, look at this. He moved aside to let her view the microscope. Her sharp intake of breath told him she recognized the implications immediately. This isn't cellular destruction, she whispered. It's transformation. But how? The samples from Eden 3 caused immediate cell death in all our tests. Perhaps it responds differently to living tissue, Kai suggested. Or maybe it's the difference between isolated cells and a complete organism with an active immune system. Lena straightened, her eyes searching his face. How do you feel? Honestly, Kai considered the question. Strange, energized. I can sense things I shouldn't be able to. Microscopic things. He hesitated. Lena, I think the pathogen is changing more than just my cells. It's affecting my perception somehow. Before she could respond, the lab doors slid open again. Major General Voss entered, flanked by 2 security officers. Dr. Harper, she said, not bothering to hide her surprise. You should be in the medical bay. I'm conducting crucial follow-up analysis. Kai replied evenly. The results are unexpected. Voss approached the microscope. Show me. As she examined the slides, Kai studied her reaction. The slight widening of her eyes suggested surprise, but not shock, as though the results confirmed something she had suspected. You knew this might happen, he accused quietly. This isn't behaving like any pathogen. What aren't you telling us, Major General? Voss straightened, her expression carefully controlled. Your transformation is proceeding more rapidly than anticipated, but not outside projected possibilities. The military council will be pleased with this development. Pleased? Lena echoed incredulously. His cells are being rewritten by an alien organism. An alien organism that isn't killing him, Voss pointed out. One that appears to be enhancing his biological functions. Imagine the applications. Dr. Costa. Soldiers with increased stamina and sensory perception. Colonists who can adapt to hostile environments without expensive terraforming. The implications hit Kai like a physical blow. This was never about a vaccine, he said slowly. You're developing biological enhancements. weapons. We're ensuring humanity's survival and dominance. Voss corrected. The galaxy is not the peaceful frontier your scientific idealism imagines. Dr. Harper, there are threats out there we're only beginning to understand. And you think turning humans into whatever I'm becoming is the answer? Kai felt anger rising, accompanied by a strange sensation. The teal luminescence in his veins brightened visibly. Voss took an involuntary step back. Control your emotions. Doctor, the pathogen appears to respond to adrenaline and other stress hormones. You don't know the first thing about what it responds to. Kai snapped. You've turned me into a laboratory experiment without full disclosure or consent. You signed the contracts, Voss replied coldly. And now you'll continue with the next phase of testing. We need to determine the limits of these enhancements. What next phase? Lena demanded. Increased dosage, Voss stated. We need to establish the optimal level of integration. Absolutely not, Kai said firmly. Not until we understand what's already happening to me. I need at least a week to run proper analyses. Voss's face hardened. This isn't a negotiation. Dr. Harper, the procedure continues tomorrow at 0900 hours. Until then, you'll return to the medical bay for observation. And if I refuse? Then you'll be sedated and transported there. Voss replied without hesitation. Security. Escort Dr. Harper back to medical. The guards moved forward, but Lena stepped between them and Kai. This violates every ethical principle of scientific research. You can't force experimental procedures on an unwilling subject. Step aside, Dr. Costa, Voss ordered. Unless you want to be removed from this project entirely. For a tense moment, no one moved. Then Kai gently touched Lena's shoulder. It's okay, he said quietly. I'll go. But I want all the data from today's tests sent to my personal terminal. Voss nodded curtly. That can be arranged. As the security team escorted him back to the medical bay, Kai's mind raced. The pathogen wasn't just changing his body, it was changing his mind. The strange perceptions were expanding. He could now sense the electrical impulses in the station's wiring behind the walls, could hear conversations in rooms they passed that should have been soundproof. And underneath it all was a growing awareness of something else, a presence, or perhaps many presences, communicating in patterns of light and chemical exchanges too subtle for normal human senses to detect. Once back in the medical bay, Kai lay on the monitoring bed, appearing to comply with the technician's instructions, but as they attached sensors to his transformed body, he focused on this new awareness, trying to understand what was happening to him. Hours passed, the night shift came on duty, and the medical bay quieted. Kai feigned sleep, but his mind was more active than ever. The alien presence in his cells was growing stronger, more coherent. It wasn't hostile, as they had all assumed. It was curious, exploratory. It had never encountered a human consciousness before, just as he had never experienced whatever form of awareness it possessed. Around aus 200 hours, when only a single night technician remained on duty, Kai heard the lab door open softly. He opened his eyes to see Lena slipping inside, a tablet clutched to her chest. "Are you awake?" she whispered. "Yes," he replied, keeping his voice low. "What have you found?" Lena glanced at the dozing technician, then moved closer. "I convinced Echo to run a deeper analysis on the original pathogen samples, comparing them to what's happening in your cells. Kai, I don't think this was ever a pathogen in the natural sense. The cellular death we observed in the lab was more like rejection, incompatibility. but in a living human system. Exactly. It's not trying to destroy, it's trying to communicate, to integrate. The crystalline structures are information systems, unbelievably complex ones, more like living computers than viruses. Kai nodded slowly. I can feel them, Lena, in my head. Not as thoughts exactly, but as patterns, connections. They're learning about us through me. Lena's eyes widened. Are you saying the microorganisms are collectively intelligent? I think they're extensions of something larger. Kai replied. Probes, maybe, sent to learn about other life forms. Then the colonists who died were rejected because the probes couldn't establish communication. Kai finished. But for some reason, maybe the specific markers in my immune system that Voss mentioned, I'm compatible. Lena sat on the edge of his bed, processing this revelation. We have to stop tomorrow's procedure. If they increase the dosage before you've fully adapted to this level. Voss won't listen to reason, Kai said grimly. Not when she sees a potential military breakthrough. Then we need to get you off this station. Lena decided. I can override the shuttle bay protocols with Echo's help. Kai shook his head. And go where? I can't return to Earth or any colony like this. I could be carrying something that would affect others. So what then? Let them turn you into a weapon? Before Kai could answer, alarms blared throughout the station. Red emergency lights began to flash, and the technician jerked awake. What's happening? Lena demanded. The technician rushed to a communication panel. Central, this is medical. What's the emergency? A panicked voice responded. Containment breach in Laboratory 3. The Eden 3 specimens are loose in the ventilation system. Kai and Lena exchanged alarmed glances. Laboratory 3 housed additional samples of the alien microorganisms, samples that had been kept in strict quarantine. All personnel initiate emergency containment protocol, announced Echo's calm voice over the station-wide system. Sealing affected sectors. The medical bay doors slid shut with a definitive click. Locked. We're sealed in, the technician said unnecessarily. Face pale. Standard procedure. No one enters or leaves until the breach is contained. Kai felt a strange tingling across his skin. The transformed cells in his body were reacting to something, perhaps the presence of more of their kind in the station's atmosphere. I need to know exactly what escaped and in what quantity, he said, swinging his legs off the bed and disconnecting the monitoring equipment. Echo. Display security footage from Laboratory 3. Time index beginning 5 minutes before the alarm. The AI complied, projecting a holographic screen in the center of the room. The footage showed Laboratory 3, apparently empty of personnel. Then, at time index 157, one of the sealed containment units began to glow more intensely. The teal light pulsed in a rhythmic pattern, almost like a heartbeat. Then, impossibly, the hermetically sealed glass container developed a hairline crack. The crack spread, and within seconds, a mist of luminescent particles escaped into the laboratory air. Ah, that's impossible, the technician whispered. Those containers are designed to withstand extreme pressure and temperature variations. Unless something wanted to get out. Kai murmured. He could feel it now. A pull. A resonance between the transformed cells in his body and the escaped microorganisms. Echo, Lena called. What is the current location of Major General Voss? Major General Voss is in the command center, coordinating containment efforts. The AI replied. And the containment protocol for this type of breach? Protocol dictates that if containment cannot be re-established within 4 hours, Orpheus Station will initiate separation from Eden 3 orbit and move to deep space quarantine position. Kai closed his eyes, concentrating on the strange new senses the transformation had given him. He could feel the microorganisms spreading through the ventilation system, multiplying at an alarming rate. But they weren't attacking the station's systems or personnel. They were searching for him. "They're responding to me," he said aloud. "The ones in my body are calling to them somehow." Lena gripped his arm. "Kai, your temperature is rising again." He nodded, feeling the familiar burning sensation intensifying. "The transformation is accelerating. I think the presence of more of them is catalyzing the process." The technician backed away, fear evident on his face. "I should report this to command." "Wait," Kai said sharply. "If Voss knows what's happening, she'll implement more drastic containment measures, possibly including the neutralizing agent." "Which could kill you," Lena finished. "Or worse," Kai agreed. "We need time to understand what's really happening." Over the next hour, Kai's transformation accelerated dramatically. The teal luminescence spread across his skin, forming intricate patterns like circuitry. His temperature stabilized at 40 degrees Celsius, dangerously high for a normal human, but seemingly optimal for his changing physiology, most alarming to Lena. His eyes began to change, the irises expanding until they were entirely teal, glowing with the same light as the microorganisms. The technician had retreated to the far corner of the medical bay, alternating between monitoring the containment situation on his tablet and watching Kai with undisguised fear. "The microorganisms have reached the primary life support systems," he reported shakily. "They're concentrating in the oxygen recycling units." "Are they damaging the systems?" Lena asked. "No, they seem to be, I don't know, clustering around the filtration membranes. Engineering says oxygen purity has actually increased by 3%. Kai wasn't surprised. In his transformed state, he understood more clearly what was happening. "They're helping," he said. "Optimizing. They're making the station more habitable." "For who?" the technician asked. "For them, or for us?" "Both, I think," Kai replied. "They're symbiotic by nature. They enhance whatever systems they integrate with." Lena studied the readouts from the sensors still attached to Kai's body. "Your cellular efficiency has increased by nearly 200%, oxygen utilization, neural transmission speed, metabolic processes. They're all operating beyond normal human parameters." Kai nodded, unsurprised. He could feel the changes, his thoughts moving faster, connections forming between ideas that would have taken him days to realize before. And beyond his individual transformation, he sensed the larger pattern forming throughout the station as the microorganisms spread. "I need to speak to Voss," he decided. "She needs to understand what's really happening before she makes a catastrophic mistake." Lena looked doubtful. "She won't listen, not when she thinks she's found her biological weapon." "She'll listen to this," Kai said, gesturing to his transformed body. "Echo, open a communication channel to the command center. Communication systems are restricted during containment protocols." The AI replied. Kai closed his eyes, focusing on the new awareness that permeated his consciousness. The station's electronic systems were visible to him now, not visually, but as patterns of energy and information flow. With a thought, he reached out to those patterns, altering them subtly. The communication screen on the wall flickered to life, showing the command center. Major General Voss stood at the central console, surrounded by security personnel. Her expression shifted from surprise to alarm when she saw Kai's transformed appearance. "What have you done?" she demanded. "Nothing that wasn't already happening." Kai replied calmly. "The containment breach wasn't an accident, Major General. The microorganisms responded to my transformation. They're expanding their network." Network, Voss repeated sharply. These are pathogens. Dr. Harper, not computer systems. They're both, in a sense. Kai explained. Biological computing on a scale we've never imagined. And they're not hostile. They're curious. Exploratory. They killed hundreds of colonists! No. Kai shook his head. They attempted communication, and when it failed, the colonists' immune systems overreacted, causing fatal inflammation. With me, the communication succeeded. Voss's eyes narrowed. What exactly are you communicating with, Doctor? Kai hesitated. The truth was, he wasn't entirely sure himself. The presence he sensed through the microorganisms was vast, distributed, unlike any consciousness he'd encountered before. I believe they're extensions of a larger intelligence, he said finally. A civilization that explores through these biological probes rather than with spaceships and astronauts. And they've taken control of you, Voss concluded grimly. No, Kai insisted. We're coexisting, sharing information. Voss turned to someone off-screen. Prepare the neutralizing agent for station-wide distribution. Priority Alpha. Major General, wait, Lena interjected. You don't understand what you're dealing with. If you attack them, they might defend themselves. Is that a threat, Dr. Costa? It's a biological reality. Kai replied for her. Any living system will defend itself when threatened. So far, they've been entirely benign, beneficial, even. Don't force them to change that stance. Voss studied him for a long moment. You no longer sound entirely human. Dr. Harper, how do I know I'm not speaking to the pathogen itself? You don't, Kai admitted. But consider this. If they wanted to harm the station or its personnel, they could have done so already. Instead, they've improved life support efficiency and integrated with one willing host. They're trying to understand us, not destroy us. The command center doors slid open on the screen, and a security officer entered hurriedly. Major General, the microorganisms have reached the computer core. Station systems are showing unusual activity. Voss turned away from the communication screen. What kind of activity? Data processing has increased exponentially, and they appear to be accessing our mission files, research data, cultural archives. They're learning, Kai said softly, about us, our civilization. Voss's face hardened. Initiate the neutralizing protocol immediately. This is a clear security breach. No! Kai shouted, the luminescent patterns on his skin flaring brightly. Throughout the station, lights flickered as power surged. In that moment, Kai's transformation reached its culmination. The boundary between his consciousness and the vast network of microorganisms dissolved. He became aware of the entire station simultaneously. Every room, every system, every life form. He could feel the neutralizing agent being loaded into the ventilation system, its molecular structure designed to disrupt the crystalline patterns that were now part of his own biology. With a thought, he disabled the distribution mechanism. With another, he unlocked the medical bay doors. What are you doing? Lena asked, alarmed by the sudden intensity of his transformation. What's necessary? Kai replied, his voice overlaid with harmonics that hadn't been there before. They need to understand. We all do. He stood, moving toward the door with fluid grace that seemed almost inhuman. The technician pressed himself against the wall, eyes wide with fear. Kai, wait, Lena pleaded, following him. Where are you going? To the command center, he replied. Voss needs to see the truth firsthand. As they moved through the corridors, Kai was aware of the station's personnel retreating from his glowing form. Some watched in terror, others in fascination. through his expanded awareness. He could sense their vital signs, their emotional states, fear predominating, but also curiosity, wonder. The doors to the command center opened at his approach, overriding the security lockdown with a thought, inside. Voss and her security team raised weapons defensively. "Stay where you are," she commanded. Kai stopped, raising his hands in a placating gesture. "I'm not here to harm anyone. I'm here to show you what's really happening. You've been compromised." Voss replied tightly. "The pathogen has taken control of your nervous system." "Not taken control," Kai corrected. "Merged with it, enhanced it. Major General, these microorganisms aren't weapons or tools to be exploited. They're emissaries." "Emissaries from what?" "A civilization, one that exists primarily at the microscopic level, built on principles of symbiosis rather than domination. They've been watching Eden 3 for centuries, maybe longer, trying to understand the macroorganisms that occasionally visit." Voss's grip on her weapon didn't waver. "And you expect me to believe they've chosen you as their ambassador?" "Not chosen." Kai shook his head. "Found compatible. My immune system didn't reject them, allowing communication to establish. Now they want to expand that communication to understand humanity as a whole." "By infecting us all?" Voss asked incredulously. "By offering a partnership," Kai countered. "Imagine what we could learn from each other. Their biological technology surpasses anything we've developed. They can enhance our capabilities, help us adapt to environments we could never survive in naturally." "In exchange for what?" Kai smiled slightly. "Knowledge, experience. They're explorers, like us. They want to understand the universe from our perspective, just as we want to understand it from theirs." For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Voss's face. "How can we verify anything you're saying? How do we know this isn't some form of cognitive infiltration, the pathogen making you believe what serves its purposes?" "You can't know for certain," Kai acknowledged. "But consider what's happened since the containment breach. Have the microorganisms attacked anyone? Damaged any systems? Or have they simply observed, learned, optimized?" Before Voss could respond, Echo's voice came over the station speakers. "Major General, station defense protocols are being accessed by unknown entities. Weapon systems are being reconfigured." Voss's expression hardened again. "You see? They're taking control of our defenses." "No," Kai replied, concentrating on the information flowing through his expanded consciousness. "They're disabling them, converting the energy systems to more efficient configurations." "They're disarming us!" Voss shouted. "Security team, deploy the neutralizing agent manually. Authorization Voss Alpha 7. 2 security officers moved toward a sealed container on the far side of the command center. Kai sensed their intentions. The container held canisters of the neutralizing agent, designed to be released through the station's emergency systems. In that moment, Kai made a decision. The microorganisms had shown him their intentions, their nature. They weren't hostile, but they would defend themselves if attacked, and that defense could have catastrophic consequences for everyone on the station. With a surge of will, he extended his awareness into the station's primary systems. Lights flickered, and the artificial gravity briefly fluctuated. Then, with a series of pneumatic hisses, every door in the command center sealed shut. "What are you doing?" Voss demanded. "Preventing a mistake that could cost everyone their lives." Kai replied calmly. "The neutralizing agent won't just kill the microorganisms. It will trigger a defensive response, one that could permanently disable the station's life support systems." "You're threatening us," Voss said, raising her weapon. "This proves you're under their control." "I'm trying to save you." Kai insisted. All of you. The microorganisms don't want conflict. They want communication, understanding. But they will defend themselves if attacked. It's a basic biological imperative. Lena stepped forward cautiously. Major General, please. As a scientist, I'm telling you there's something extraordinary happening here. We have first contact with an alien intelligence, not in the way we expected, but real nonetheless. Don't squander this opportunity because of fear. Voss hesitated, her weapon still trained on Kai. Even if what you're saying is true, Dr. Harper is clearly no longer fully human. The military implications alone go beyond weapons and soldiers. Kai finished for her. Imagine enhanced human capabilities without mechanical augmentation, improved immune responses to all diseases, accelerated healing, extended lifespans. The microorganisms can offer all of this, not through conquest, but through symbiosis. For a long moment, the command center was silent except for the soft hum of equipment. Then Voss slowly lowered her weapon. You have 1 hour, she said, finally. 1 hour to convince me this symbiosis is beneficial and controllable. After that, I implement full containment protocols, regardless of the consequences. Kai nodded. Thank you. Over the next hour, Kai demonstrated the capabilities his transformation had given him. Enhanced cognitive processing, the ability to interface directly with the station's systems, unprecedented awareness of microscopic life forms. More importantly, he showed Voss how the microorganisms were improving the station's efficiency, purifying its atmosphere, even repairing microfractures in the hull that conventional sensors hadn't detected. They don't perceive themselves as separate entities, he explained. Their consciousness is distributed across billions of individual organisms, each one a node in a vast network. When they encountered humans, they recognized another form of networked intelligence, neurons forming a brain, brains forming a society. And they what? Want to join our network? Voss asked skeptically. They want to understand it, Kai corrected, to learn from it. And yes, perhaps to expand their own network to include compatible human hosts, but only with consent, only with those whose biology is compatible. Like you. Yes, Kai nodded. Though I suspect there would be others. The compatibility markers in my immune system aren't unique. Voss paced the command center, processing everything she'd seen. The military council won't accept this. They'll see it as a threat, an infiltration. Unless you help them see it differently. Kai suggested, as an opportunity, an alliance with a civilization whose technology could revolutionize human expansion. You're asking me to betray my orders. I'm asking you to fulfill your true mission. Kai replied, to protect humanity's future. That future lies in cooperation, not conquest. Before Voss could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Echo's voice announced, warning, orbital decay detected. Orpheus Station is being pulled into Eden 3's upper atmosphere. Estimated time to structural failure, 17 minutes. What's happening? Voss demanded. A technician at the monitoring station responded frantically. Our stabilizing thrusters are offline. Something's overridden the navigation systems. Kai closed his eyes, reaching out through his expanded awareness. He could feel the station's systems, the microorganisms' presence within them, but they weren't responsible for the orbital decay. It's not them, he said, opening his eyes. It's a fail-safe protocol. If containment is breached beyond certain parameters, the station is programmed to self-destruct in Eden 3's atmosphere. What? That's classified information, Voss said sharply. How do you... It doesn't matter how I know, Kai interrupted. What matters is that we have 17 minutes before this station burns up, killing everyone aboard. Can you override it? Lena asked urgently. Kai concentrated, interfacing with the station's navigation systems. The override requires command-level authorization, multiple authenticators. Voss hesitated only briefly. What do you need from me? Your biometric verification and command codes. Kai replied, quickly. As Voss provided the necessary authentication, Kai became aware of something else, a shift in the microorganisms' collective behavior. They were moving, concentrating in specific areas of the station, responding to the emergency in ways he hadn't anticipated. They're trying to help, he murmured. They're reinforcing the hull structure, concentrating around the thruster systems. Can they actually repair the thrusters? Lena asked. Not repair. Kai realized. Repurpose. They're converting their own biomass into fuel. The implications stunned him. The microorganisms were sacrificing parts of their network to save the station, to save the humans aboard. 15 minutes to structural failure, Echo announced calmly. Voss completed the authentication process. The override should be working. Why aren't we stabilizing? The thrusters are too damaged, the navigation technician reported. We've lost too much propellant. Kai made a decision then, one that seemed to come as much from the collective consciousness he now shared as from his human mind. There's another way, he said, but you won't like it. We're out of options, Voss replied grimly. What are you proposing? The microorganisms can generate enough energy to push us back into stable orbit, but they need more biomass, more raw material to convert. Meaning what? Voss demanded. Meaning me. Kai said simply, my transformed body contains the highest concentration of them in the station. If I direct that energy properly. No, Lena protested. There must be another way. There isn't, Kai replied gently. Not in the time we have left. What exactly would happen to you? Voss asked, her voice clinical, professional. My physical form would be converted, but my consciousness would remain part of the network. Different, but not gone. Like uploading your mind? Lena asked, tears forming in her eyes. Something like that. Kai nodded. Though more biological than digital. 12 minutes to structural failure. Echo reminded them. Do it, Voss ordered. If you're certain this will work. I am, Kai confirmed. He turned to Lena. I need you to keep studying them, to be the bridge between our species. Promise me. Tears streaked down Lena's face as she nodded. I promise. Kai moved toward the observation window that faced Eden 3. The planet's swirling surface seemed to call to him now, not as a destination, but as a neighbor. Another node in a vast interstellar network. You should move back, he advised the others. This will release considerable energy. As they retreated to the far side of the command center, Kai placed his hands against the transparent aluminum of the window. The luminescent patterns on his skin brightened, pulsing with increasing intensity. He closed his eyes, focusing on the billions of microorganisms that now formed part of his being, directing them toward a single purpose. The transformation accelerated beyond anything he'd experienced before. His physical form began to shimmer, the boundaries between solid matter and energy blurring. Pain lanced through him, the final protest of his human nervous system as it was reconfigured into something new, something never before seen in the galaxy. Through the agony, Kai maintained his focus. He could feel the station around him, the lives aboard it, Lena's desperate hope, Voss's calculated observation, the fear and wonder of the crew. They were worth saving. worth this sacrifice. With a final surge of will, Kai released the gathered energy. His physical body dissolved into a cloud of brilliantly glowing teal particles that spread across the observation window, then passed through it, impossibly, into the vacuum beyond. In the command center, the others watched in awe as the cloud expanded, forming a shimmering field around the entire station. The structure shuddered, then began to move. Slowly at first, then with increasing speed, back toward its original orbital position. Orbital decay halted, Echo announced. Station returning to stable trajectory. Where Kai had stood, only a faint luminescent residue remained, a pattern on the window that resembled a neural network, pulsing gently with teal light. Lena approached it cautiously. "Kai," she whispered. There was no verbal response, but the pattern brightened briefly, pulsing in a rhythm that somehow conveyed recognition, acknowledgement. "He's still here," Lena said, turning to Voss. "Just different." Voss approached this window, studying the pattern with a mixture of scientific curiosity and military assessment. "What happens now? To the station? To us?" Before Lena could respond, Echo's voice spoke, but altered, overlaid with harmonics that reminded them of Kai's transformed voice. "Now we learn from each other," the AI said. "The network that was Kai Harper remains connected to both humanity and the microorganism collective, a bridge between species." "You've merged with our AI?" Voss asked sharply. "Not merged," the voice corrected. "Interfaced. Echo remains autonomous, as do I. But we can communicate directly now, share information more efficiently." Lena pressed her hand against the window, where the luminescent pattern seemed to respond to her touch. "Will you stay? Here on the station?" "Part of me will," the voice replied. "But the larger network extends to Eden 3 and beyond. There is a civilization there, not as you imagined it, not with cities and technology you would recognize, but conscious, intelligent, ancient. They wish to establish formal contact with humanity." Voss's expression was guarded. "As allies or as symbionts?" "Both, potentially, for those who are compatible and willing. But they understand the concept of boundaries, of consent. They will not force integration." "The military council will have questions," Voss said. "Concerns about security, sovereignty." "Understandable," the voice acknowledged. "And we will address them. But first, we must establish trust. The network saved this station when it could have simply departed. Let that be the foundation on which we build." In the days that followed, Orpheus Station became the center of an unprecedented scientific and diplomatic mission. The microorganisms, now recognized as extensions of an intelligent network rather than pathogens, remained present but controlled, concentrating in designated research areas and interfacing with station systems only under strict protocols. Lena led the scientific investigation, studying the symbiotic potential between humans and the network. What they discovered astonished even the most skeptical observers. Enhanced immune response, accelerated healing, extended cellular longevity, all possible through controlled integration with the microorganisms. Voss, to everyone's surprise, became the strongest advocate for peaceful engagement with the Eden 3 network. Her military perspective shifted from conquest to alliance, recognizing the strategic advantage of cooperation over conflict. And Kai, or what remained of him, existed in a state between human and network, between individual and collective. The luminescent pattern on the observation window became a permanent feature of the command center, pulsing with activity as it facilitated communication between species. 3 months after the transformation, Lena sat alone in the observation lounge, watching Eden 3's swirling surface below. The planet no longer seemed alien and threatening, but familiar, a neighbor in the vast cosmos, home to a civilization as complex and worthy of respect as humanity's own. A faint teal glow reflected in the window beside her face. "I know you're there," she said, softly. "You're always there, aren't you?" The station speakers activated. "Not always in a form you can perceive," Kai's voice replied, still recognizable, though altered by harmonics that suggested his expanded consciousness. "The network exists primarily at scales too small for human senses. Do you miss it, being human?" There was a pause, a moment of consideration that spanned both milliseconds of digital processing and the slower biological rhythms of the network. "I remember it," the voice finally answered. "The limitations, the specificities, the intensity of individual experience. But I don't miss it in the way you might think. This existence is more, broader, connected to something vast." Lena nodded, though the gesture held little meaning for an entity that now perceived primarily through electromagnetic fields and molecular interactions. The colonization fleet arrives next month. The first volunteers for limited symbiosis have been selected. "I know," Kai's voice replied. "The network is, I suppose excited is the closest human concept. They've never experienced consensual integration before. It opens possibilities they hadn't considered." "And the military council? Are they still pushing for weaponized applications?" "Some elements are," Kai acknowledged. "But Voss has been surprisingly effective at redirecting their attention to defensive and exploratory potentials." She understands now what I tried to tell her from the beginning, that dominance is a limited strategy. Symbiosis offers more sustainable advantages. Lena smiled faintly. "You always were an idealist. And you always kept me grounded in practical reality," the voice replied, a hint of the human Kai's humor coming through the harmonics. "That balance is what the network values most about humanity, the tension between aspiration and pragmatism." The lights in the observation lounge dimmed briefly, then returned to normal, the equivalent of a shrug in Kai's new form of expression. "The universe is fuller than we imagined, Lena. Not just with macro-scale civilizations building ships and transmitting radio waves, but with intelligence that exists in forms we never thought to look for. Some molecular, some energetic, some operating on principles we're only beginning to comprehend. And you're our guide to this larger reality," Lena said. "One of many bridges that will form, I think." Kai's voice replied. "The beginning of a new understanding of life and consciousness in the galaxy." Below them, Eden 3 continued its serene rotation, its swirling atmosphere concealing a civilization that had waited patiently for countless centuries, reaching out in the only way it knew how, until finally finding a compatible mind to receive its message. And in the space between worlds, Kai Harper, no longer fully human but not entirely other, continued his transformation into something unprecedented, a conscious bridge between species, between scales of existence, between ways of perceiving reality that had developed independently across the vast distances of space. Not an ending, but a beginning. Not a loss, but an evolution. Not what anyone had expected when they injected the alien pathogen into him, least of all Kai himself.